Previously on Civic Africa with Stephanie Okeyo.
I think storytelling is really powerful, and then it becomes even more powerful when you create a mechanism and a platform and a system where people can tell their own stories. So our films are all made by the young people that we work with, and we're very firm on creating a space for young people to tell the story from start to end so that it's their own stories. And I think that's really powerful because when you then use that in a screening about a particular healthcare issue, be it TB, be it diabetes, be it cancer, when people see people that look like them reflected on the screen and talking about issues that resonate with them, it makes people feel very comfortable then to discuss and to have dialogue. And I think that's really, really, really powerful.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Civic Africa program. Today we are joined by Justin Yarrow and Amanda Obidike. A background about our speakers today. Amanda is a data scientist who is passionate about STEM education with over 11 years in social enterprises and startups. Amanda is the CEO of STEMi Makers Africa, a nonprofit organization that boosts employment and innovation, empowering young Africans to be competent using e-learning teacher-centered platform to reimagine education through sensor technology and physical computing. Welcome, Amanda. And our other guest is Justin Yarrow. Justin is a cell biologist and has a keen interest in making science work better for science and society. Justin is the founder of CodeMakers, a nonprofit organization empowering young South Africans through science and technology education. The organization aims to skill young people to be creators, problem solvers, storytellers, and innovators. Welcome, Justin.
Hi, thanks. Thanks very much for having us.
So my first question will be a personal one. Both of you come from science and technology. What got you into moving into STEM education and public engagement? We'll start with you, Justin.
So I was working with the National Department of Health here in South Africa, doing work on health systems, variety of different programs, rolling out HPV vaccine in South Africa, and in general, the health system was really doing a much better job with the advent of antiretrovirals, but the education system is still really feels the effects of apartheid, and kids in South Africa don't get that kind of hands-on education, that hands-on science education that kids in other parts of the world were getting. So that's when I started CodeMakers as a way of bringing coding education, robotics, and engineering together. And then from there, I started the SuperScientists project to really change the way that young people see science and scientists. But I could talk more about that in a bit.
Thank you, Justin. And Amanda, from a data scientist to now, a lot of your effort driving into STEM education. How was that transition? What made you have that interest?
Okay, thank you so much. Unlike Justin, I never had a prior knowledge or experience in science and technology. My first degree was on business administration, and then I transitioned a year before COVID. The reason was in Nigeria, there is something that has been very, very common, and it's the problem of effectively transitioning from education to employment. So you're reading one thing, and you're not, you're not giving that opportunity, to, implement, do something that you did in respective to what you studied. So I had that issue. It was a problem getting a very competitive opportunity in the market. And I found out that, there were particular kind of demography that had such opportunity. And those were like the people that were technically inclined. They had more hands-on skills. They had these practical applications in terms of integrating into the workplace. So, it was just a couple of research I had to do, and I found out that, I needed to find a niche, especially in the technology space, to, excel and become self-reliant. So when I got that opportunity, it didn't just stop at having because I had to go in, I had an opportunity to be trained by the IBM in data science, but I didn't just want to stop there and get myself like a better paying job. I felt like, why don't I serve as, a very strong knowledge panel in terms of preparing young talents in the university or in secondary schools to have that practical skills that no matter what you read, you should be able to have some level of practical skills. So, that was what, led me into starting the initiative of STEMi. And one strong pillar that we have really been focused on is refining the educational space, especially giving hands-on tools to teachers. That way they can make subjects like math or science to be very interesting, because we found out that there was little retention. People just found those kind of subjects to be so boring because of, we don't have amazing or interesting tools that can help students to, explore opportunities like that. And it's been an amazing experience because we have been able to work with teachers, we've been able to work with students, whether transitioning from education to employment in the tertiary institution and secondary schools, where they are able to create and build something with, these given skills.
And just to bounce back to Justin, you talked about CodeMakers and your flagship program, SuperScientists. For viewers, just briefly, could you explain what SuperScientists is about?
Sure. So when I was teaching coding to kids, I wanted them to learn about South African scientists and African scientists. And I put up like a bulletin board in the back of a classroom where I was teaching, found all of these different scientists, laminated them, put together like a little blurb on them. And not surprisingly, like the kids paid zero attention to that whatsoever. And meanwhile, they were, making animations and video games and really like delving into like Dragon Ball Z characters and all these different characters that they were making. And what I realized was that, it's obvious, but like kids live in a world of imagination and they live in a world of characters. But the way that we teach science is really kind of concept and fact and doesn't bring in people. Or if it brings in people, it's like Einstein and Marie Curie. Like you ask a kid to name a scientist and they say Einstein or they say nobody. So then what I thought to do was let's take scientists who, if you think about what they can do, they truly have superpowers. And this also kind of sort of came from being a scientist and you're working on like a DNA mini prep. You're trying to like extract DNA from a bunch of cells. And in some ways it's kind of, this rote, you centrifuge things, you mix things together, but at the same time, like there you are actually like extracting DNA, you're cutting DNA, you're making a transgenic animal, organism. Like it's unbelievable what scientists can do, but we don't really sex it up that way, if you will. So then, we started drawing scientists as superheroes, kind of reconceiving the idea of what scientists can do in this world that kids already understand. And then from there, we've made over 70 different super scientist characters, both scientists and science champions. So people that are documentary filmmakers, people in policy, people that are in a broader world of what it means to be a scientist, because you can't just have science in the lab. And then we've made a comic, we've made a museum exhibit, we've distributed tens of thousands of materials to kids in South Africa and in other countries. And now we've just made an animation short film and are making an animation series where, again, we just want kids to see science the way that science, for how important and powerful science is through media that they already understand.
So within the Civic Science Africa, we've been talking about how much there's so much good work happening within the continent, but there is need for collaboration and synergy. You two did something interesting this year in which SuperScientists and STEMi Makers of Africa came together to pilot a one-of-a-kind program, the Scicomm In Practice Fellowship. Would you, Amanda, just tell us what exactly that was?
Okay, let me first start with how, I and Justin officially met. Justin actually reached out to one of our social media person and, said that he had this amazing idea that he would love to, see how we could explore together in terms of partnership. And, we took it from there. The connection started and, he shared a concept called the Scicomm In Practice. We didn't actually come up with the name immediately, but the concept was actually to pick, aspiring scientists. They may not really be very experienced scientists, but people that are very, very enthusiastic about science communication, and people that will likely want to communicate their work, their research and knowledge, especially to non-scientific community. And we're looking at a demography of West Africans. Initially it was Nigerians, but we felt like, okay, knowing that we have the reach in West Africa, why don't we make it, more extensive? And, that was how it started. So concept upon concept, we started to modify the idea, and then it became a thing. And it's the first of its kind. That's like the first project that we're doing together. But there was something that resonated with this initiative. Justin he was preaching to us that he didn't want it to be like any other kind of Scicomm fellowship, because a lot of times you still see something that is maybe holistic or so not hands-on. We wanted something very realistic. So it even required coming up with like what the modules would look like, who are the particular spaces that we can, bring in as facilitators. And it was very tremendous, because it's something that, he brought in his experience and we brought in our community prowess, because, we've gotten to do projects across West Africa. But it was very, very amazing because from the beginning to the application, we had overwhelming number of people that were very, very enthusiastic and were very willing to being part of the fellowship. So in short, is the Scicomm In Practice, the name came in, and we tried to see how we could just pen it as a signature name, and it was a very, very good experience. It's something that we started in the month of between August, September, and we rounded off. So we had fellows that we categorized as core fellows and associate fellows. Fellows were like the young ones that didn't really have so much work doing in the science communication space, while we had associate fellows that we found out that they had quite a lot of amazing work, or they had their own existing initiatives. So, categorizing them that way, just to ensure that we have the best of the best, people that will be willing to put in a start to finish idea about, what kind of project they can come up in amplifying science communication, especially to non-scientific public. So that's like on a on an overall summary of how we came about, but I would yield the floor to Justin.
So that was a great summary. I think, I think the thing that was most impressive was the need. So when it was advertised, we got over 400 applications for people that wanted to be part of this. And as Amanda said, a lot of people already were, we had people that were professors, people that were journalists, people that were doing their own YouTube science channels. So I think that the biggest take home for me was there is an incredible need for and a desire for people to learn more about how to take their science and turn it into compelling communication. And I think that that's just, fantastic because, we don't have the same level of people just don't hear about the science happening on the continent in the way that, we hear about the science happening in other places. And to be able to train up a group of people who are doing science communications in different ways, right? Like the in practice component was really critically important because people are out there communicating science on social media, on Instagram, doing whatever on TikTok, and I think there is just like this great energy out there, and we just want more people to be able to do it and do it in a way where they gain some skills, they gain confidence, and then they have their own voice to be able to share their science and connect with young people, connect with the everyday public, connect in their home, in their mother tongue, do it in funny ways. And, and this is really kind of like a step one for them to do that, a bit of skills, a bit of confidence, a bit of a network from the other fellows and from connections through us. And, we really hope that we can expand it and get it funded to have a bigger impact and, frankly, reach like hundreds and thousands of people in over course of years. But yeah, I think that was what was great, was that it really kind of touched a nerve. And people said, sign me up. I want to do this.
And just to touch on what you guys are talking about, what were the key things you had to consider when designing the program? Well, for you, what were the key elements or foundations that you really had to have?
I mean, one of the things that we wanted was to have a network of people that were the sort of faculty, if you will. So, a group of African science communicators that are doing work, that are doing it well, that are still sort of finding their way. And again, I think that's an important aspect of this, is that there's clearly wrong ways to do science communication, but there's also like a lot of space and creativity to do it, and people that are figuring that out and figuring out what works and how they can find their audience. So that was a very key component. Not just a lecturer like saying like this is how to do it, but instead giving lots of different viewpoints. And then another very important piece was having a project at the end of it. So it was a series of webinars, some engagement with myself and Amanda, and then a capstone project for them to be able to do something, so that it wasn't just I was part of this program and I learned some things, I watched some webinars, but didn't have a practical component. So with the capstone project, we have fellows that have done scientist profiles. We've had fellows that are doing like science news projects, writing things up. A fellow that's doing a kind of a day in the life video project, and I think with this as its first year, the other thing for us was that it was very much an experiment. It was very much a pilot program, and we would learn as we went. But I think those are some of the key components. Amanda, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah. Yes. Just to echo Justin, we tried to make it very different. We had very practical sessions. For instance, we had Anishisa, which is an amazing, she has this Roots of the Science podcast, and she kind of invited a couple of fellows where they get to interview each other or they get to interview her. So the whole idea is putting people in that space of how you are going to apply science differently. It could be like from a podcast series or co-authoring a science communication piece and all of that. But for me, I looked inwardly as we, went forward. And that was in Nigeria, for instance, entertainment is like the buzz. You get to see like a get ready with me kind of content, different kinds of content in the arts and entertainment. And that's amazing. But, when you get into the science, you find out that you have very, very few people who are amplifying science or who are making people understand how a scientist is just like also another, individual. We're not that complicated. So the whole idea of what was bringing in facilitators who are professionals in those spaces and showing them simpler ways of how they get to amplify their work. We had Anthony, who is doing amazing as he gets to work with Nat Geo and a couple of people initiatives and all of that. So like Justin said, it was a pilot project, but I must say that there were a lot of learning curve. And the whole idea is that we're able to have fellows that were very enthusiastic, and hopefully we'll get to amplify their work, because a couple of them are still undergoing or still rounding off with their capstone projects, just about doing science, Scicomm in a very different kind of way.
And as we are about to wrap up, could you, as you mentioned, this was an experiment. What were the key challenges in implementation of the fellowship?
Let Justin go first. We have the technical challenges, we had the administrative, but I would yield the floor to Justin first of all.
I mean, the first challenge that we had was just in the application process. We had a lot of people that used AI to answer their kind of application questions, and for a project where we want to help people develop their communication skills, it's really hard to know how good of a communicator they are if they're using AI. So that was difficult. It led us to have like multiple rounds of application, and it's a challenge that everybody faces, right? Whether it's job applicants or teachers with assignments to students, and then I think it's the difficulty of the webinar series. I think like that worked really well. People were very generous with their time, and Amanda's team made all of the logistics of that work really well. The difficulty about doing capstone projects is that you want to have the person who's making that project, they have to be very invested in it, involved in it, and so that then just leads to they're requiring a fair amount of time on our end to help them make those projects come to life. So I think in the future, what would be really brilliant would be to have a group of other science communicators or scientists who could lend some time of theirs to help mentor the fellows, and sort of have more of a distributed network of to make this the sort of thing where you have maybe small groups and a small group mentor type program, where you'd have maybe a couple of fellows working with one person that helps shepherd their capstone project, helps give them advice and feedback. And I think there's a growing group of science communicators, and there's tons of science communicators out there who I think are very keen to to develop young science communicators. I think we all sort of see through what's happened with COVID, what's happened with global warming, science communication around climate change. We need to do a better job in communicating science. We need to do a better job in making the importance of science something that the public understands and really takes to heart. And we need more science communicators. And we need more science communicators that can engage young people. So, and a lot of people are like, TikTok, I don't know how to use TikTok. Like, we need those people that are on TikTok all the time, and are science communicators who can reach that TikTok audience. So I think really that is something that we'll hopefully be able to do in the future. Make it a bit more intimate with the fellows and a mentor, and be able to have more people who can say, yeah, I've worked with these mentees, and I've helped get them to the next step in their science communication journey.
Justin, Amanda, any insights on the administrative aspect of it?
Exactly. So just to echo Justin, my take-home point, like for the beginning stage, was to see how we can modify or make the applications more direct. It was something that we thought of later on when we, designed the sample questions. So I'm hoping that maybe, for subsequent applications, there are certain key drive home questions that we're going to, impute. That way we can easily deduce the ones that are very qualified. Another thing that I feel that, we could also consider is also having to identify some level of capstone projects also for the associate fellows. That way it's not just only going to be centered on them gaining from the webinars, because we found out that they were quite intelligent. Like, a lot of them were very proactive. I must say, Justin can actually attest to it. Very, very proactive. Some of them are doing so amazing in their different spaces and in their different institutions. So it's about identifying how we can also put them to functionality. And just to also borrow from Justin, we would hope to strengthen or build a Scicomm community, because we have quite a lot of science communicators, but we don't really have that clear data. So it's about really creating that niche for ourselves, whereby these people are willing, and then we could leverage on them like a mentor-mentee or a peer-to-peer kind of relationship, where if we have applicants that are fellows or associate fellows, in the course of the fellowship, we can pair them to this experience or these professionals, because there are quite a lot you can learn from a kind of mentoring this phase. And it also could give us an opportunity in terms of when we want to apply for like a grant or something that would, help the fellowship. People want to see that you have some level of capacity building inside of that. And also give the capstone project a more give it a more practical base, because we found out that Justin I think he must have forgotten, but it was really it was a struggle at one time when we were not bringing the fellows to really make them understand. So we kept on reiterating it, and Justin even came up with more ideas. Okay, you can actually do a science explainer, you can actually do this and all of that. So if we're able to give them that clear idea from the beginning, as they move along the fellowship, they don't even need to wait until it's time for them to start their capstone project, because they know what to do already. So that's like on a more administrative part, which I know Justin would agree with me in some of these things. But overall, trust me, it was very tremendous. Associate fellows were beautiful. Fellows were amazing. Facilitators even applauded them, because they brought in quite a lot of energy into the fellowship webinars, and we're trusting that it's going to get better as we chime along.
Thank you so much, Amanda and Justin. As we wrap up, one sentence of your call to action to African science communicators, just in one sentence for each.
Justin, go first, please.
Sure. I don't know. let's build a community. There is a community. I think there's already a community out there, and we just need to connect.
Yeah. For me, I think we should empower people to lead, because like Justin said, these communities exist, but maybe they're in silos, or maybe we just don't know where or how to tap into.
Thank you so much, Amanda and Justin. It's always beautiful when you see two organizations, two initiatives work together, and I agree with you. There's so much happening within the region. It's just finding that synergy and creating that network. So thank you so much for spearheading this, leading by example, and we look forward to learning more about the future of the fellowship. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.